Okay, so what's your initial response before we go through all my discussion questions?
Which one?
The one by Woody, so popular music in school.
They're both kind of pretty similar.
I don't know. They kept using like the word authenticity. I just found that kind of interesting because they were like, I don't know. I mean, like, what exactly is like?
Talking about how we should keep.
Well, yeah. So unpack that. What do you mean by what exactly is that?
Well, I don't know. Like, I guess like music is so subjective and stuff. They're trying to make it sound like there's a right and wrong way almost.
Okay.
And I don't know if I really necessarily agree with that, but I might have also misinterpreted what they were trying to say.
Paris, what do you think about what authenticity is supposed to be?
Like, we should teach music the way that it's like performed, like the way that popular music is learned, the way it's learned.
Yeah, so their use of authenticity is really trying to compare how we teach music in the schools and how we approach popular music to the way that we approach music of other cultures. Right, so if we're teaching about Chinese music, we're usually pretty good at we should, have authentic recordings.
Yeah.
Teach music the way that they're like the culture they learn it culturally.
Yeah.
But then we look at things and why don't we do that with popular music? Is there a thought there with that phase?
No.
Okay.
I mean, like, I don't know. I was thinking about it, but nothing actually happened yet.
I kind of agree, because like when you look at school settings, it's more all about classical music, not really about popular music. We don't teach like guitar, like mantra, like about popular music as much.
Right, and think of both areas, right? General music and an ensemble setting. What are we, if we're using popular music in the general music classroom, why are we doing that? Or what's our purpose?
To reach the kids who like it.
In order to get them hooked and then.
Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly what the article says, isn't it?
Yeah.
We use popular music to get them hooked, to draw them into classical music. Is there another way? Can we do something different with that? We can use popular music and then teach the concepts that we want to teach them through popular music without making that transition to classical music. That is one of the authenticity things that they're talking about, is being able to teach popular music for the sake of popular music, for the sake of our students being able to continue to play after they leave high school. How many of your friends from bands still play their
They
instrument?
don't play instruments in high school.
Right. They don't play them after high school unless they do what?
Go into music.
They go into music, or if they're really die hard, they might find a community band to play in. But there's really no way for them to go jam out. And there's really no way for them to, I mean, they can play by themselves, but that's probably not the reason they stayed in band, right?
I can't think of a single person from my band class who still plays, other than like Oscar, but he doesn't count because he's a music major.
Right. But then think about, did you have any friends in high school that played bass or played guitar or were in a garage band or had like their own little jam thing going on?
Kinda. I won't call them my friends.
Okay, well, you knew them.
Yeah, I don't know if they still play though, because I haven't talked to them.
Okay, but you could make the assumption that they probably,
Maybe.
even if it's, rarely, they might find somebody to jam with, or they might tool around on a guitar by themselves. So that's kind of where we're going with this. Any other thoughts on this particular article?
I should have more coffee. That's not on the article, that's just IRL.
Yeah, I saw it interesting, like talk about this disconnect between like what the kids are listening to outside of school and what they're doing inside of the school music.
Right, and that not only does that happen in general music, but think about your ensemble stuff. Even here. outside of this building?
Like more popular music.
Right, more
Yeah,
popular
I
music.
guess
Are you listening to the recordings from stuff in band?
No.
Unless maybe not. Maybe you can learn more about it, but
Yeah, I
if
mean,
not.
if it's something I'm having trouble playing, maybe,
Mhm.
but no.
But it's not for the enjoyment of listening to it, right?
Or it's like, hey, this is cool, look at what we're playing in band kind of thing, but
Mhm.
not for fun.
Well, your middle school and high school students are going to do the same thing, right? So we need to figure out how we can grasp this idea of crossing that line of school music and home music. And that's where popular music comes in.
Okay.
Surprise! Okay, so these are just some of my questions that came up as I was reading these again. Why doesn't the content of our curriculum reflect the musical world that we live in?
I mean, honestly, I think a lot of it for people who aren't trained in music is just maybe a little hard for them to understand, or they don't want to understand it.
Okay.
Because people are like, classical music's boring. There's like this stigma attached to it. But like, if you start to like understand what they're trying to do, and I mean, I'm like 4 years into a music degree, and I don't even think I really understand what's going on half the time.
Right. And so is there a way that we can lessen that stigma by what we do in our public school classrooms?
Yeah. I just don't know how.
Brainstorm. What's something that you might be able to do if you don't get a band job next fall or next winter, right? If you end up in an elementary or middle school classroom, what are some things that you might do to help lessen the stigma of stuffy classical like music?
Like, you could do like some of those like listening activities with the more classical older stuff.
Okay.
Maybe give them like a weekly song that you have to learn a bunch of facts about, and then like could be fun, like you can make a game out of it or something.
Okay. Anything, Paris?
Yeah, I think everything, I believe.
Okay. And that's one of the things I want you to think about when you're observing this semester. You know, is what's going on in that classroom that you're observing, is it relevant to your world inside this building, or is it relevant to the student's world?
Okay.
And is there some middle ground there that can be common? Is there some crossover? Is it just totally separate? I want you to keep those things in mind. Think about pop music and its relation to social and cultural context. Right? So think about where we live. What is one of the more popular types of music to listen to outside of school here?
Probably like country.
Okay, right? So country, that's definitely where we're located thing.
I think a lot of people like around here also listen to like classic rock. At least that's what I'm getting woken up to at 2 in the morning when the bar down the street closes.
Right.
Okay.
So, a lot of people my age listen to like rap and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like, I don't know, just like people that weren't in like band or choir. I've noticed too. They're just like,
Okay.
which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just interesting.
No, but it's different,
Yeah.
right? They've got a different background, so they're going to choose something different to listen to. And that'll be similar to your students, right? When they're younger, they're probably going to be listening to what their parents listen to.
Yeah.
And as you get to middle school, they're going to start listening to what their friends listen to. And that's something else to keep in mind. When was the last time that you practiced in a group outside of a sectional?
You mean just for fun?
Just for fun? Yeah, so like not, say, quintet rehearsal.
I was gonna say, does that count?
No, that does not count.
Does jamming with my brother on Christmas count?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, and at open mic, I play with
Okay.
people there a lot. I'll play banjo or mandolin or
Mhm.
guitar or flute or whatever.
That works.
Little
you're playing in that setting? Is your mindset the same or different than when you're playing in quintet setting?
No, it's more fun.
Okay, so it's more fun. So it's a different mindset,
Because I'm
right?
improvising, so it's like I can literally play whatever I want, and it's with people who are like, not that I don't like people in my quintet or whatever, but like it's with people who like aren't classically trained per se, so like they're not gonna know if I screw up or whatever. They're good musicians still, they're just not like.
Yeah, but that's an important key, right? And that's going to be an important key for your students. You can still be a good musician without being classically trained.
Yeah. And
it's
like
just the way you go about things.
And when I was younger, I didn't believe that, so I'm happy to come to that realization and drop that snobbery a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Paris, have you practiced in a group outside of sectionals?
No.
Is it something you're interested in?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say you could take your uke and go jam out at an open mic.
Right. Mm-hmm. I've done the open mic before myself, not really in a group.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like it's like started as like an open mic, but it's like we all kind of like became friends with each other. All these people are like over 42, but we all just kind of like they're like the best way to describe it is they're all a bunch of hippies, and usually the only one who's not under the influence of something there. And like we just jam out to like old hippie music. It's really fun though. And like sometimes they make like really fancy organic food and stuff. And it's weird.
Right.
And it's by my house, so like I can tell if they're there or not because I can just walk by and see them in there. So it's fun though.
Yeah. But fun, right? That's the
Yeah.
key. Right? Anybody who didn't decide to go to become a music major, they were still in your ensemble because it was right? They were still having fun. Their friends were there.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to remember too. Even with our population in general music, who may be the students who are there because they have some kind of music requirement, but they chose not to be in band, choir, and orchestra, it still needs to be fun for them. Because if they're having fun, you will keep all of your hair. Right? You're not going to be ripping your hair out because they're going nuts.
Okay.
And it won't go gray, all those things.
My hair's pretty close to that color already, so it needs to not.
Okay, so this is a question about yourselves again. What do you think about your oral skills training versus your reliance on having to have printed notation to be able to play?
I don't know if I should even answer this question because it's like, obviously I'm gonna know how to do that just because like I can like hear and see notes in my head. So it's not really fair for me to answer that question.
It's totally fair. Which way do you enjoy playing more? Having to rely on notes or being able to use your ears?
Depends.
Okay, does it depend on the setting or does it depend on which instruments in your hand?
Both. Depends on a lot of things. I don't know, like I love playing my flute and just improvising and being able to be obnoxious.
I struggle with things right here, so it's helpful for me to have notation. I understand the importance of doing things regular.
Yeah. I don't know, like tablature I think is kind of stupid for like string instruments.
Yeah.
I don't like reading that, so like I'd rather just like have like an outline of a chord or
Okay.
hear what
But
I'm
if you
supposed to
didn't
do.
understand chords and you couldn't read notation, would tab be helpful to you?
I guess maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, and having the tab was going to help you develop your ear, because all you have is fingers and fingerings, right? You don't have anything else. You still have to be able to listen to the music and be able to transfer that. All right, here's the last one for this article. How do you feel about learning alongside your students in a popular music setting?
What do you mean by that?
So instead of being the complete expert, you're kind of learning either at their pace or you're learning a little bit ahead of them so you could teach them something new the next day, but you're not that expert and you're screwing up all over the place during class.
That's fine.
That'd be okay.
Okay, why is that fine? Because a lot of people are like, no, I can't do that.
Because you can't get any better yourself if you don't continue to learn, and it's not fair to the students if you only teach them what you know. It's like very narrow-minded. It's like, okay, I am a classically trained flutist, so you're only going to learn Bach and Mozart. Have fun.
You would be surprised by the number of people who do that.
Well, they shouldn't be teaching.
Or they need to find a better, an environment that suits that better than where they ended up.
Yeah, and I think like people should be like ready to be open-minded when they're teaching. Like, it's not gonna be like black and white like everybody in college acts like it's going to be. Like, there's going to be things. No, but really, when they're like, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, like you're gonna fail, and it's like, literally, like you could have your school like go on strike in like a day, and then what are you gonna do? Like, nothing is predictable.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think, Paris?
I think, it's like it's okay to make mistakes. We can learn from that.
Right, and your students see you're human.
I have to work on some like breathing techniques probably, because I'm gonna get really mad a lot, but it'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to keep your composure, right? When even if you mess up in class.
Oh, yeah. It's easier around kids. I don't know why, but it just is.
Oh, it totally is.
Like, it just like, I think it's almost because you're in that mindset where you're like, okay, you have to be like alpha.
Well, yeah, you have to be alpha, but also at the same time, they can see you're human.
Yeah.
And even if you make some kind of mistake, you're still in control for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still be in charge. But they see that, they can make that connection that, okay, you know what, I'm struggling with this.
Yeah, true.
And she's struggling with it, so it's okay that I'm struggling with it.
Right.
I try to do that when I'm like teaching like food stuff or like whatever to people. It's like, this was not always easy. Like, eventually it'll get kind of easy in some aspects, but like, at first it's going to be hard. It's just like, it's an experience thing for a lot of people.
Right. And they see us, like if we're teaching beginning band, they see us being able to play all this stuff, and they're like, oh, it's not hard for you. Why am I having so much trouble?
Yeah.
Trying to put yourself in their mindset. Like,
Well, yeah, and there's a couple ways you could do that. We're getting a little bit off topic here.
Sorry.
But this is good. You can, if you've got that beginning band class, and you are teaching trumpet, right, and you're not great at trumpet,
True.
play trumpet in that class.
Yeah.
Don't say, I'm going to demonstrate for you on clarinet, right? Because then I don't have to transpose and I sound better on that. But having them see you struggle is going to boost their confidence and boost their want to get better and their desire to practice, which would be great for them. Or you can play clarinet this way.
I don't know if I can play it the other way.
Well, this is backwards.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if I can play it frontwards.
You can't play it with the left hand on top?
No, I mean, like, I just can't play the clarinet.
But that idea of if you're okay at trumpet, play it with your left hand, because you're going to have to think more like your students are having
to think. Would you
think.
explain that to them so they don't start doing it that way?
You can explain it to them, or you can say, I want you to mirror me, which is why I'm playing backwards.
Fair.
And I would do that on recorder for the first couple of weeks. And then say, okay, I'm going to switch my hands the right way now. You just keep doing what you're doing, but now that I need both hands, I'm going to put it back the way it belongs.
Okay.
And you may still have to switch back and forth just to get your students with their hands on the right side a lot of the times. I mean, my clarinet players, it was December, and I was like, switch your hands, switch your hands, switch your hands! Because there wasn't a lot of practicing going on at that point, because they have like apartments, and you can't practice because this person works third shift, and things that you may not think of if you never lived in an apartment. But certainly, excuses that you're like, okay, we